So could you just please state your name and your position that I could use for you?
Yeah, so my name is Sylvain Chalabois. I'm director of the Agri-Food Analytics Lab at Dalhousie University.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Sylvain. So how is the pandemic affecting food security and access to food in Canada, but also if you know any specifics about Montreal or Quebec?
Yeah, so essentially, food security has been somewhat compromised. There are more people struggling out there for sure. When the food inflation rate reaches 10%, uh, there are many sticker shockers. So obviously, people will will recalibrate their budget. They'll actually trade down a lot more, and when they trade down, they tend to make some compromises nutritionally, unfortunately. And that's what we're seeing right now. So we're seeing people going to other places to buy food, like dollar stores. Dollar store sales are up 18% since March. So you can see that really people are just changing address to get their food, and also they're leaving behind some brands to actually buy lower quality brands as well. So that's one thing. That's the other thing we're seeing. We're also seeing this shift from proteins to fiber. Some proteins obviously are much more expensive, like beef, for example. So they're just basically cutting back on some of those expenses. And also access, as part of food security, is access, and we're seeing some empty shelves here and there, and that's really due to inflation. Inflation really has disrupted the supply chain. It's not working as well. Some companies are in dispute with other companies, so procurement of ingredients, selling food to grocers as well has been a little bit more challenging, and so that's one thing. And yeah, so overall, prices, food affordability has been affected by this huge increase, and so that's why I think people have actually adopted new habits to counter the impact of food inflation.
Thank you so much. Is there kind of an average you would be able to state about, I mean, I'm sure it ranges product to product, but just overall, how much the cost of food has increased in Canada?
So the current inflation rate right now, as we speak, is at 9.4% year to year. So it gives you a sense of what's actually is going on here. So retail, it's actually close to 10%. It's at 9.9%. Service menu prices have actually gone up by a little bit more than 7%. So you can see that right now food service is spared a little bit more, although 7% is still high. So you're seeing really prices being higher across the board, and that's driven by a few categories, mainly bakery, dairy as well. Those categories are really pushing prices higher. Whereas meat, for example, meat is has calmed down. It was expensive before, but not as much now.
Okay, good to know. Thank you. Um, and if our if our food economy were to be more based on local farmers, local food, local produce, would we not be experiencing such shortages and such high prices?
Uh, Well, I mean, we have an open economy in Canada, and I mean, the province of Quebec particularly is very good at growing some food, but not all foods. And that's something that's important to keep in mind. We do import a lot of foods, and they actually do buy a lot of food from us. So in an open economy, you appreciate, and typically trades will make food cheaper in general. And that's still the case. In fact, when you look at some countries around the world where trades aren't necessarily a priority, you can see that prices are much higher. Um, and but if you look at the G7 particularly, I mean, we're doing okay. I mean, the food inflation rate in the US is actually north of 12%, and in the UK it's actually north of 13%. So, yes, 9.4 is high, but it's not as high as other places around the world.
Wow, that's pretty high for the UK and the US.
A little, yeah.
That's crazy. Do you have any projections or patterns for the future on maybe how long we can expect inflation to continue, especially directly impacting food prices, and maybe specific to Montreal or Quebec as well?
Yeah, I would say if you were to use, if you were to look, if you were to use an analogy to describe the current inflationary cycle that we're in right now, um, if you were to use a baseball game as an analogy to kind of explain what's going on here, we're probably in the seventh inning stretch. So we're not out of the woods yet, but we're starting to see calmer waters. As for Quebec, I think dairy is a significant problem in Quebec. Prices are going up significantly, and they will continue to rise. Dairy products tend to be more expensive. Butter is actually 24% more expensive than last year, as an example. So that's pretty high, and so we're not expecting that to calm down anytime soon, but for other categories, we are expecting things to be somewhat stable, and will continue to be stable. We're expecting to end the year at about 7%. So we concur with the Bank of Canada, and in December of last year, that's exactly what we predicted. We predicted a food inflation rate of 7% for the year 2022, and that's kind of what's going on right now.
And when you said expected 7% the end of the year, is that inflation in general or specific to food?
That's specific to food, just food, yeah.
Okay. Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Because
Um,
we have a forecast every year, and it's Canada's food price report, and so we released our 12th edition in December of last year, and we were predicting an increase of 7%. And at the time, we were actually called alarmists. A lot of people were saying it's not going to happen, and when here we are at 9.4%.
wow. Um, is there anything you recommend for families who are, or anyone in general who are having difficulties accessing affording food?
Uh, Look for best before dates. But I would say, I mean, you have to, if you continue to do what you're doing in this environment, you're going to lose. So you need to kind of change address. You need to look at different options you have, and sometimes people just aren't aware of the options that they do have in their neighborhood. So, and in Montreal particularly, I mean, there's lots of different retailers that are not necessarily well known that do offer some good deals. Even if you have an independent grocer around the corner, it doesn't necessarily mean that that grocer will charge you more or charges a premium. You'd be surprised.
Perfect. Thank you for sharing. Is there anything that I didn't ask that you think is important to just keep in mind or maybe look into myself when putting this story together?
No, I think we've covered plenty. Yeah.
Perfect. Great. Thank you so much for your time. It was such a pleasure speaking
All
with
right.
you, meeting you. I'll be in touch.
My pleasure, and I'll just leave the system on. Yeah.
Okay, perfect. That's great. I'll be in touch about the release and thank you again. Hope you have a wonderful rest of your day.
Take care. Bye bye.
Bye.